Hi everyone, here's the video overview for Thursday, April 2nd. I just want to start by saying today has been full of technical difficulties, so if you see any images that just don't seem as well cropped or a little blurry, please understand that today's been a little difficult in that regard. We're moving to day 4 with our decimals homework. As a nice change of pace, we have a poetry activity as a mini lesson before the kids start their web reading today. In science, the kids will have a chance to be a mineral detective. I'll be showing images of three minerals, and the kids will use what they've learned over the course of this week to try to identify them. And then in writing workshop, we switch gears from revising to our first day of editing. Here is the warm up with the math, so go ahead and pause as your child does this. Okay, now here are some possible solutions. If the scarf is going to be 2 meters long and she has knitted 1 2/10 meters so far, solution A uses the number line, going from 0 to 1 2/10 to show what she has, and then counting up to 8/10 to get to the 2 meters. Solution B starts with a tape diagram, total at the top, one part we know, one part we don't know. We can subtract 1 2/10 from 2 to get the answer that way, and then you can see that she needs 8.8 meters more written as either, or 8/10 more meters written as either a fraction or a decimal, and that is the same as 80 centimeters. So far this week, we've learned the basics of decimals. The first place value position to the right of the decimal point, which is the tenths. So looking at this picture, we see what's supposed to be a meter stick, 100 centimeters. If we have 1/10 of that, that is 10 centimeters. It is 1/10 written as a fraction. It is 0.1 as a decimal. Today we introduced the second and final place value position that we'll learn this year. Fourth graders are not expected to learn anything beyond tenths and hundredths. So we still have a picture of a meter stick, but instead of 1/10 of it, it's only 1/100th of it. It's a tenth of a tenth, and that would be 1 centimeter out of 100. If we look at the two together, we can see that 1/10 is 10 times greater than 1/100th. So 10 centimeters on top, 10 times greater than 1 centimeter. Now, looking at it numerically, 1/10, 1 square out of 10, is going to be written as 0.1, as we've been doing this week. 100th is going to be 0.01. That's the key learning, making sure that the kids know that if they're writing 100th, it's not putting a 1 directly to the right of the decimal point. There needs to be a 0 in the tenths place to show that we don't have 1/10, we have 100th. One thing that'll take a little time to get used to is that 0.1, 1/10 can also be written as 0.10 because 10 hundredths is the same as 1/10. That's something we'll be working on over the next few days. Here it is spelled out a little bit more completely numerically. On top is what I just showed. On the bottom, because 10 hundredths is the same as 1/10, we can connect it to what we learned during our fractions unit. If we divide 10 hundredths by 10 over 10, that would equal 1/10. If we multiply 1/10 by 10 over 10, that will equal 10 hundredths. So that might help the kids understand this equivalence a little bit better. And then as a decimal, we see that 0.10 is the same as 0.1. We'll get to the point where we'll say it in simpler form, where we'll say it as tenths, but for right now, it's important for the kids to know that 10 hundredths does equal 1/10. In the homework today, they'll see some tape diagrams that combine tenths and hundredths. So for this one, for example, we see 2 full squares out of 10, and then next to it, we see 5 hundredths shaded. Building on that, we take the 2 tenths that are shaded and turn that into 0.2. To the right of that, we have our 5 hundredths, which is 0.05. The next step is to put it together, and we read that as 25 hundredths. So the kids understand that going to the right of the decimal point, the first place value position is always going to be tenths. The second one is always going to be hundredths, 0.25, 25 hundredths. And as we say it, we don't want to read it as 2 tenths, 5 hundredths. We want to combine it, because if we were to turn the whole tape diagram shaded part into hundredths, it would be 25 shaded parts out of 100. So that is read as 25 hundredths. The kids will also be asked to do a number bond. where we start with our 0.25, and just to help us understand the meaning of each place, the 2/10 can be written as a fraction, 2/10, and then the 5/100 would be written as 5/100. Here we are putting all of that together, tape diagram at the top, then we're adding our 0.2 plus 0.05, we're adding it as a decimal to equal 0.25, and then we see the number bond right underneath it. Hopefully we will seamlessly go back and forth between fractions and decimals as the situation calls for it. The answer key is the next slide, so you can go ahead and pause as your child works on it. When I was saying that the technical difficulties prevented as close of cropping as I would have wanted to do today, you'll see it here. There will be some overlap in what you're seeing on these pages, but all parts of the homework sheet are shown here. Okay, we're now moving on to reading workshop, and as I mentioned, we have a nice change of pace today. Here's a poem called Lawnmower, so go ahead and pause for a second as your child reads this. You're welcome to read it together. And it's important to know that in poetry, we don't refer to each part as a paragraph. We refer to it as a stanza, and then you also see the lines numbered. Okay, we're going to go back and forth between this slide and the next one. Once you and your child, or just your child, has a chance to read it, I want them to focus on the following questions or opportunities for observations. They're welcome to take notes if they want to. It can be done orally. In class, this would be a 10-minute mini lesson before we start our independent reading. So the first question is, after reading the poem, what does it mean? Does it have any, would they consider literal meaning, deeper figurative meaning? So we'd want to think about that. We also want to be on the lookout for quote-unquote ingredients. The kids should know similes and metaphors, comparisons with and without, like or as, repetition we studied in reading workshop, any type of interesting wordplay, alliteration where more than one word in a row or almost in a row start with the same sound, onomatopoeia, any sound that occurs in nature, and then the kid should know hyperbole and exaggeration and personification, giving human qualities to things that are not human. Number 3, if the kids have any reactions or thoughts or emotions or connections they can make after reading the poem, that is great. And then connected to our writing workshop rubrics, word choice is the new one that we're using this time around. Sentence fluency we haven't gotten around to. That'll be for our 6th and final project. But that is to be on the lookout for any well-crafted sentences. And then we want examples of strong voice. So as your kids go back and look at it, they can keep going back to the green slide to see what they can find there. Once they've had a chance to do that, I've provided, it's not really an answer key, but just some things that they might have noticed. So as far as meaning, perhaps they're thinking that the poem is the poet's attempt to see an everyday object in a new, fresh, and imaginative way. Perhaps that's what they infer the meaning to be, or maybe they come up with something else. There are several examples of personification where we're giving the lawnmower human qualities: grinding teeth, spitting out a thick green spray, and to know something, since lawnmowers don't have brains. There is a rhyme at the end of each stanza: spray away and hay. If the kids are on the lookout for great word choice, maybe they looked at something like green spray, words such as chopped, soft, or delicious. And then as we go back, if they have any other reactions, thoughts, or emotions or connections to share with you, or anything else on this slide, they are more than welcome to chat about that with you. So for our independent reading today, this week I've mentioned I'm asking the kids as much as possible to build in some fiction reading along to their fiction reading, so that within a 30 to 40 minute period, perhaps they're doing half the time using each. In science, we have a little fun today being mineral detectives. This is a sheet that I included as an attachment to today's email. And as I've been saying with other attachments I've been giving, the kids are more than welcome to print it out and write their responses on it. They can also do it on another piece of paper. I'm about to show slides with 3 different minerals. Tomorrow I will reveal what they are. But I want them to use this sheet and look through the other PDF that I've sent. I've also attached it to today's email so that they can see it if they need to. That way they can go back and look at the chart that the book provides. They can look at the answers on the outline that they wrote. So what they did earlier in this week is meant to be the raw material that they study in order to help them determine which mineral is which. So they'll fill out this sheet as they look at mineral 1. And then the next two are completely optional. They do not need to do them. They can do it orally, or they can do it on that sheet a second time or a third time if they wish. So that's mineral 1, mineral 2, and then that is mineral 3. So again, tomorrow I'll provide the names of those and the kids can compare what I'm providing to what they wrote. In writing workshop, we're moving on from 3 days of revising to editing. Of course, the kids are welcome to do more revising if they wish. We just need to be sure that they go back and edit any changes they make during revising. In class, we use an approach called 4-color editing. This is something I developed, probably 20 years ago, to help break down the complex task of editing into smaller, more manageable steps. So the kids in class use a 4-color pen, and each pen is focusing on a different aspect of editing. So you see black, which we'll focus on today, deals with organization of paragraphs, especially dialogue paragraphs. Red we'll get to next time. That's all about punctuation and run-on sentences. With blue, we focus on capitals, and with green, we focus on spelling. So today, we're only going to focus on black, whether they use a black pen or not. I want your child, and if you can go through it with them, that would be great. And if they want to join a partner for editing, that would also be fine. But I want them to read their story and focus only on paragraphing. Two things in particular: dialogue paragraphs and what we call block paragraphs. The rule of paragraphing is that anytime there's a change, if you are writing about one event and then go to a new event, we need to move to a new paragraph and indent. Or if we're describing a character and then we're describing a different character, it's a change of topic, we go to a new paragraph and indent. Same thing if there's a change of time or place. And then the one that's going to be most common is dialogue. Anytime a new person is talking, even if we're not at the end of the line and it seems like we're wasting space, we still go to the beginning of the next line and indent. Here's an example from one of my Chase Manning books of what a page should look like when everything is indented properly. You'll see that there are a lot of short paragraphs because there are many times when a new person is talking and we need to indent that. So this is something you might want to keep handy when the kids are doing their editing, or something they can flip back to. Here's a common mistake that kids make. They do a nice job of going to a new line when a new person is talking, but they don't indent. So you can see a few paragraphs starting with, I think, what's wrong, Arthur have a family emergency. In all of those cases, a new line should have been started, and it has been, but we also need to indent. The part about the block paragraph is when you see something like this. I basically took the entire text from the page before and pushed it together. And this is very common in 4th grade at this time of year, where the kids are doing their chapters and they're so focused on getting their ideas down and having a balance of ingredients that they really don't spend a lot of time on paragraphing or any time on paragraphing. So we want to be sure that today we're on the lookout for any block paragraphs or anything like this where we are starting new lines but we're not indenting. So ideally, by the end of today, when the kids go back and look at their story, they will have everything organized into paragraphs correctly. That is all for today. Thank you.